And we're doing it live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Wednesday. Welcome to the Mattriarchy. I'm your host, Rhys. And we have a really short show today. We're going to see if we can make it short. We're going to try to get to
4, 3, 2.
something sort of like a stopping place on this Wonder Woman train, maybe. Oh my gosh. So, where we left off last time, I had it in my head that we had done so much more about this storyline last time than I went. But I went back to re-listen to the show yesterday to catch myself up, and I was really disappointed because we only hit 2 issues last time we talked, and it felt like it took forever.
Yeah.
So today we are going to hope to get to 14 and what I think is the biggest miss of any story ever.
Keep waiting. I think it misses harder later, actually.
Oh my gosh. It's so bad. It is so bad. But I am today joined by the regular gang of Wonder Woman readers. We've got Twitless's brilliant idea. And
I'll never forgive you for this.
No, I still stand by it. My theory still holds in a way. That's the weird part.
Actually, there is definitely something to say about that. We've got, of course, Hutch from You Lousy Kids down there, and Cartoonicus,
Stay tuned.
which I think if there is anybody that it's this the Wonder Woman that is fear porn for the trad life. Not this issue. That was like issue 8, right? Think. But yeah, that was really bad.
And that's the one that took so long to talk about because it's an attack on religion and on normality and all that. For what it's worth, the next issue we're about to talk to is barely worth mentioning. So we can skip over a lot of this stuff. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's why I think we can do this really quick.
Yes.
And I want to. And I'm going to say one thing. I debated on bringing it up, but just in case anybody wonders why everybody on the thumbnail is wearing a party hat, is today I am 47.
Oh, happy birthday.
Hey, happy birthday.
So the other reason that I want to get done quickly is not just so we can get over it.
Birthday, man.
is because I want to go get ice cream. So
right, we'll keep that in mind.
I just turned 55 on Saturday, so it's birthday week. Yeah.
Oh hey, and my Ideal Comics partner Barry Tetz, his birthday was on Sunday, or Monday. Yeah. So yeah, happy birthday, everybody. So I did not realize your birthday was so close to mine, Hutch.
Yeah, well, we didn't do anything for my birthday, which is appropriate because I didn't do anything for my 50th. COVID hit and we didn't get to have 50th birthday parties. Anybody born in 1970. So I found out Brad Meltzer is born 2 days away from me.
Oh, really?
We both turned 55 in the last week. So
how about
yeah.
that?
Anyway.
And side note also, our Ideal Comics co-creator Chris Lawton's birthday was like last Friday or something too. So
we should have a big digital party for crying out loud.
We should have, but we didn't. So
digital cake has no calories.
Good.
Well, that's also means that when you get the real cake, so you don't feel like lonely and forgotten, you get a real cake, and then you eat all of it because there's no one to share it with. So digital cake is even more dangerous.
Hold on, I think I got some Twinkies here.
So, first of all, before we jump in the chat, we have Star Storyteller. We've got Abigail. We've got Isaac Larkin. Thank you guys for showing up. Hopefully, we can give you guys a show worth watching. Yeah. So we're gonna start where we left off last time. Was that Wonder Woman was doing having a trauma bonding experience with her imaginary version of
she's being tortured by Sovereign after being it's weird. She basically wins this fight with the entire assembled rogues gallery with Sovereign at the Capitol.
Yeah.
And like right at the Washington Monument. So she wins this battle and then passes out afterwards, and so that's how they catch her. So it's basically for a way for her to win and lose at the same time,
which is
which,
Yeah.
which
the
is
coolest thing ever, right?
it's okay, I guess. I guess the hard thing for me is that it seems that Tom King is terrified of letting Wonder Woman. Actually, no, I can't even say that. He has this really weird approach to having her like lose, I guess, because she actually in this issue she technically loses a fight. Uh, so I can't say that Tom King never wants to have her lose, but it's only under very specific circumstances. Whereas many other superheroes have had their butts handed to them and then have to kind of regroup and then, come back and win. It's a very common thing, but Tom King seems to only want it to happen in very narrow circumstances.
Well, any chance it's tied into that old binding your hands concept?
No, none of it. None of that play comes into play.
Nothing like that. But I mean, like the same concept. Does she
Well,
have
it's
to
like-
lose in a way that is like tragic because it's to a man or something?
Well,
No,
it's not
that's
even
it.
so
No,
that-
that's the thing. She loses to a woman in this one. That's what I'm saying. It's like this completely.
and it's one of these like, and that's never really even addressed either, which is so frustrating. But it's also like the inverse of that, right? Like the whole like binding thing is like she's captured and then she's tortured and she's
Right, but I
bound
thought I
by the
remembered.
sovereign,
Mhm.
and then despite her being bound, she still defeats him, sort of, kind of, through sheer
Yeah.
willpower and a hatred of normalcy.
Getting bound by the lasso of lies should have been like a huge depowering moment for her. It should have been like not. It should have been way harder for her to break free of that. But that would have worked against. See, part of the problem here, in my opinion, is that Tom King is not allowing himself to be a better writer than he could be. And I think there are things that are standing in the way. And it's very frustrating because I can see these glimpses of it's like, oh, you understand parts of this character and you could do something interesting here. But there's this like wall in the way that basically says, no, no, no. I have some sort of, thing in my head. And whether it's my approach on feminism or the fact I don't like Trump or the fact that there's this leftist fear of the rise of the right. So there's this constant need to counter signal. Have you noticed that? There's just this constant need to just do constant counter signaling, and when you're weighed down by all of these anchors and baggage, it will eventually have an impact on your ability to convey a narrative. I think that explains a lot of what's going on with Tom King's storytelling. I think he could be better, but I think he's got a bunch of freaking baggage, and it's weighing it. It weighs things down. It prevents him from making certain risks and taking certain even expected superhero things that would have made the story better in places. And he ends up in really weird territory. That's
Can I say something for a second?
Yes.
We were talking about this before the show, that one issue is not connected to the other in any logical way, to the point that it looks like she won the battle in Washington and then it opens with her captured in the next issue. And it's like that issue that issue needed a panel where she's won, and then all of a sudden that dark lasso comes in and grabs her, and it says, and this is the lasso of lies, and you're now captured, and and she's suddenly, that would lead like dramatically, you're like, oh no, what's going to happen next issue? Whereas there's no indication that she's even been captured by collapsing after beating everybody.
So
and
the only
thing, and then at the end of the last one, she kind of wins by not caving into all the torture. And then we open this one, she's on an island. And it's like, how did none of us were clear on exactly how this happened. And
I
thought she got away.
I only have there's one thing about this, and I actually read ahead. And so I don't know. You know how Tom King, I feel like, is it not, those of you who've read.
Okay, let me ask a question. Is this a lasso of lies thing?
That's what I was going to say. I feel like, because what we have here, and Tom King does this a lot with this story arc, is that there seems to be these gaps in the narrative, and you're like, how do we end up here? And that would fit if it's like a liar telling lies. Yeah. And there's a few other breadcrumbs that end up, I think, later on in the arc that might back that up. But to Hutch's point, it doesn't detract from the fact that the story, as we are delivered it in a serialized way, is very disjointed, and as far away as issue 19, to my knowledge, it still hasn't come together yet, because it feels like Tom King is doing that thing that he's done with some of his other series where he's like, oh, I'm weaving a tapestry that's 50 issues long. And
Yeah.
the question becomes, is he delivering enough to the audience to get them on board with his tapestry of 50 odd issues that gets interrupted by tie-ins and crap all the time?
I mean, I'm only doing this because I really have something to say about issue 14 because I'm really angry about it. That's the only reason I'm doing this.
Me too.
You know, but the thing is, I want to come back to something about Tom King and the only interaction he and I have ever had.
Oh, you had
it was
one
on Twitter, and Tom King had said that I responded to one of his tweets that I didn't care for what it was, that he wrote the story along, and he said that it was a 50, that this is a 50 issue 50 of a 100 issue story arc that he had planned. Just wait, it'll be worth it.
Yeah.
And I said 50 more issues is like 3 years. I said if some girl drug me along for 3 years, I'd kick her to the curb. I said I would rather, I'd rather be alone than a chump, and you write Batman like a chump.
Oh my!
And
all that.
No, I don't. And that's the thing is, it's just like if we had any sort of a hint, if like Hutch had, if we saw the black lasso, it wouldn't even have to catch her, right? We need at least as many hints as they had in season 2 of Lost that something else is going on.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, so he is doing that again, where it's like, this is clearly part of a much longer tapestry. That's a very Tom King for him to do. But again, I'm not sure if he's delivering enough to keep the audience on board with that. And again, I feel like this has happened before. Didn't his Batman run get kind of cut? He had 100 issues planned and he only made it through 50. Like these things get cut.
He got kneecapped in the low 70s. And then they gave him a Catwoman Batman miniseries that ran for, I think, 18 issues because he had a contract. But they pulled him off the Batman book.
That's what I'm saying. Like, so that's the thing is, like, I feel like this approach he's got has a couple pros in it, but it's weighed down by quite a few cons, and
and I'm going to say, and you tell me if I'm being out of line here. I mean, I know you think they're high points. I don't believe there is a single issue of this comic that I have read that I have sat back and said, no, that was good. I want to see more of that.
I like the fight scene one. I like issue 6. I like the one where he takes the boy to Themyscira.
Yeah, I know.
She wears the red hat.
I was like, I'm going to quote myself from the last show. The Wonder Woman gives Tom King the best day ever story is not one that would make me want to pick up the next issue.
Mm-hmm. Can I point out the fact that in a dozen issues, the fact that you can say the fight scene one is one of the problems.
Yes.
It's issue 6.
This is
issue 6. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, and I will say that like the showdown in DC was epic.
Yeah, no, it's cool. Honestly, I picked that up. I saw something on it line, and I picked it up, and I was like, "Ooh, that got me to actually pick up the series to begin with." It was that. I was so like, it's funny how when superheroes do cool superhero things, it can make you want to read.
So anyway, back to this issue, so we can get through it really quick because this issue is like Hutch said, it's very skippable. It's a nothing burger. So in fact, it is basically the Discord episode, the first Discord episode from My Little Pony: Friendship is Magic.
It's a hell of a lot. It's a hell of a lot of narration too.
Yeah. And so basically,
what goes on in this issue is that Chris Claremont levels of narration,
except without
the charm,
except without the literary aspect of Claremont. Anyway, so basically, in this issue, Wonder Woman, for some reason, washes up on a beach. We're not exactly sure why. It appears that it's all part of the Sovereign's plan because she gets to face off against Cheetah.
He drops her off, so and he has the Cheetah on this island. He wants Cheetah to break Wonder Woman,
Yeah,
although it's not
it's
entirely
the most.
clear exactly how that's supposed to happen.
They're kind of setting it up as the most dangerous game. But of course, because this is Tom King's Wonder Woman, they just all end up being the best girlfriends ever. And
Yeah, that was weird too.
It's all and Wonder Woman offers Cheetah the one thing she never had, which is friendship, and then everything's hunky dory after
It was
that.
a little more. Sorry, it was a little more gay than that. There was Tom King definitely had to have this little nod of, oh, well, they love each other, and it's like, what?
Yeah. But I mean, but it's just, but that's the whole. But yeah, that's it. It's just that if you that episode they did the story way better with Discord, way better voice acting. Everything was great. In My Little Pony, friendship is magic, and you get all the same beats out of it.
Look, pull up the page. Pull up the page where they're like leaning on each other's shoulders.
Yeah, okay.
It's totally like it's clear
And
Tom is.
Well,
doing
and I
a
will
thing
say,
with
like
that.
the art, one of the things before the show. Actually, we'll share this one panel quick.
Does the
just
art not
after-
remind you a little Phil? It's a little reminiscent of Phil Cho, which is kind of neat.
Yeah, I mean, and Frank Cho.
Sorry, that's what I meant, Frank Cho.
Yeah. Like I mean, one of the things Abigail was mentioning in the pre-show when she was the first one here, and she was saying the art is the only great thing about this book. And I mean, my gosh, look at this page.
It's pretty.
Look at this page. It's amazing. It's amazing. So
that's shout outs to crap, what's his name? We should give credit to the actual artist.
I could look it up, but I don't want to.
Give me a second, I'll have it for you.
Awesome.
It is Semper. So it is Daniel Semper.
So here we go.
I'll type it in chat.
Okay, sweet.
And he's a champ. I'm not sure. I'd have to look it up.
Anyway,
I'm gonna go with like Brazilian or something. DC. A lot of mainstream comics pull a lot of talent from South America,
as they should. I mean, South America.
He's from Spain. He's from Spain. Okay, Barcelona.
Barcelona. Okay, so here we have they're having their camp out. Oh, look at this! It's any minute now they're gonna crack some beers and just tell stories about their. Oh no, they're just gonna cuddle. Because...
I think the part that frustrated me here is that the climax of it. It's almost like Tom King wanted them to get to this moment but didn't know how, because she's strangling. They basically they fight for days. And first off, I didn't know Cheetah was quite at that level where she could like fight Wonder Woman like fist for fist for days. I
don't think she can. I think they just made that up.
I thought she had like sort of like I thought, again, someone can correct me if I'm right. I thought Cheetah's strategy usually was ambushing and maybe getting her with the claws, but like in a straight up like punch fight, I'm pretty sure Cheetah doesn't have the ability to tank hits for days from Wonder Woman. I didn't think
she's not Amazon level.
Yeah.
That's just odd.
So there's that. So then what happens is that Cheetah is strangling Wonder Woman on the beach, and she's like, die, or she say, die and be chewed, which again is just, I think it's a piece of dialogue that Tom King thought sounded better than it played out. And of course, Wonder Woman's new catchphrase is no thank you. And then
God, it's so cringe.
The chain. Well, what's even worse is the climax, the thing that actually turns the climax on its head, is Wonder Woman wins through defeat, and that's an interesting idea. Again, Tom King's got some good ideas, but the execution of that idea was that Wonder Woman, as she's passing out from being choked, says I love you, and then like that instantly diffuses Cheetah, and then they're at being like besties. That's it. Yeah. And it was just like there needed to be.
No, aren't they sisters or something?
No. The story, the comic does not convey anything about why Wonder Woman saying this particular line would have, like, it doesn't work. The idea is cool to win through, to have victory through defeat. And to do that, to put Wonder Woman through that is actually a cool idea. So like I said, Tom King's got smart ideas, but he had no execution on it, and that's why it falls flat. That's what I'm saying. Like it's disappointing to see someone who's clearly smart enough to have a good idea not know how to make it work.
Well, and there's been 3 different Cheetahs in continuity that I can recall, but every single one of them was powered either by jealousy, or envy, or not powered by, but their motivations were jealousy or envy or what's the other thing?
Yeah, they want power, or they want stuff.
Or the lust for affection, right? The
Yeah.
demand that people love them, right?
Yeah.
So
She's not exactly Lex Luthor, the old
Yeah.
Silver Age Lex Luthor, where Superboy had a best friend named Lex Luthor, and then he blew out his hair when he was putting out a fire, and he's like, "Now I hate you forever." And it's like, but
Best
Elliot S.
origin
Magan could write a Lex Luthor who remembered being friends with Superman once and could somehow make him both detestable and likable, and you could kind of see why Superman wanted to get the friend back and get him on the side of the good,
Yeah.
and that would be, you could kind of see that when they reinvented him under John Byrne, he's just an evil man and there is no connection there. And of course we've seen Lex Luthor being done so many ways now that who knows what the status of that is, And it's kind of like with this, it's like, why the only reason that she would say I love you is that Wonder Woman's power is love, that she goes to man's world to spread love and she loves everybody.
Right.
Not that she's got lesbian feelings for Cheetah, but more, in the same way that it's more like the Cross and the Switchblade, where the kid says, I can cut you into 1,000 pieces. He says, yes, you will, and everyone will love you. Every one of those 1,000 pieces will love you.
There's a way to I think there's a way to deliver this, but you needed to plant some seeds of Wonder Woman saying something that's specifically meaningful to Barbara here, not just a generic love thing that calms her down.
Right. Or spend some time previous in the story, actually reintroducing the reader to these dynamics that he's going to play out in, right?
Yeah.
Well, and it's like, and he's got this huge, so I'm going to go back to one of my favorite stories. You guys all know I talk about all the time, but James Robinson's Starman, right?
Yeah.
He had all of these kind of complex machinations that were working through this huge, 80 issue story that he wrote, right? But in order to get to them, he had these little stories of 1 issue or 3 issues or 5 issues where he would feed little bits of those information in the backstories, or he would tweak continuity a little bit to marry concepts and ideas together in a way that you may not have thought of. And so when you had the big reveal that the Mists, that the new Mist, impregnates herself with Jack, you care. And when Jack's like, I'm a dad, and and he takes ownership of that, it matters, right? Not because you had this dramatic scene where this stuff happens or is implied to have happened, but because you've seen Jack wrestle with what responsibility means and what it meant to be a son, and see him fail in that already. And then you've turned the tables, and now he is in his father's place. But that was after 2 years of through action stories and through setting up action stories, you also in the background are laying this foundation about the complex relationship that Jack has with his dad. So none of that's happening here.
And you really should not have brought up James Robinson, because it's a terrible contrast, because James Robinson could take a character that I suddenly found Copperhead interesting. He wrote Copperhead for 1 issue, and it was he brought some depth to him. He likes transistor radios, and collects them. And it's wow, that he kind of found an interesting habit for the guy. He could introduce so many characters, and in 1 issue has found something nice about them, something that you didn't know about them. He brought in the Justice League Europe, a new version of it, just to kill them off, but he made all of them deeper so that you actually cared about these people that he was killing off. And he does this again and again. He could bring in characters I had no interest in, and by the end of it, I was like, okay, I'm kind of like to see what he did with them, And Tom King, given all this, room, he's like, we're going to make you the writer for all these issues, and he can put in so much talking and not develop the character. I still don't know what Cheetah wants.
I think
there's so much
Tom,
talking and nobody says anything.
Tom
Yeah.
is falling into a trap here where I think he really the narrative voice. This is so funny. I'm actually glad that Tom King is doing the thing he's trying, but it's failing badly. The narrative voice is something that we have missed in superhero comics. People just started making them storyboards, and
Mhm.
so having we could argue about whether Chris Claremont goes too far. He does sometimes in the narrative voice, but it's kind of cool that because comics can do this, and comics can add some depth that you wouldn't otherwise have and they need to sometimes because comics are not just storyboards. It's not film. We need a little bit of additional guidance on what's the significance of what might be going on and so on. However, Tom King has created a narrative voice, A, that we're not supposed to trust, B, that we're supposed to hate, C, it's not really here's again, this encapsulates perfectly what I've been saying about the baggage. Okay, if you want a narrative voice for a villain, it needs to be someone that you love to hate, not just hate. But because Sovereign is a bad person that Tom King needs to counter signal like in real life, that's this baggage, and it prevents him from creating that type of villain. So if, for example, we had like a Doctor Doom narrating a story, Doctor Doom is a great example of the character that you love to hate. Because he has, the mixture of admirable qualities, or he's cool. Doctor Doom is a cool character, even if you don't like him. And there's other villains, like I said, if Lex Luthor is narrating a story, you can get on board, even if you don't agree with Lex. You love to hate him. And so if he's narrating a story about how much he hates Superman, you can actually get on board with it. You can have fun with it. The Sovereign is not cool. He is specifically made to be pathetic and petty. And Tom King constantly needs to remind you about how this man is pathetic and petty, partially so that he can counter signal the political right. It's very clear that that's a big axe to grind. Well, if you have a character who you don't love to hate, but you just hate, why am I reading? Grace is a great example, Rhys. Look at all of the stuff we have to read from this guy. Like, you're creating a situation where your readers are going to just hate reading the book, which is what I started to do. Every time I read one of those boxes, you're just like, because there's nothing fun about it. Sovereign needed to be cool. And that's the problem with that, is you make him cool, you will also make him a little bit more relatable, or maybe a little bit more admirable or desirable. And Tom King can't do that because, he's actually connected to bad things I don't like in real life. This is why you shouldn't mix some of your personal feelings about the current political landscape with your superhero fiction. It creates, like I said, this baggage. If we had a situation where we actually love to hate the Sovereign, I wouldn't mind reading his narration, but I do, because I know I hate him because Tom King hates him. It's very clear. It's very, very clear. And that creates a huge problem for what's going on in this book, because a lot of these pages, as you can see, is just reading narration from someone we're supposed to just hate.
Well, and I don't think it's even just making the villain cool, right? Okay, so here's one of the things that, and not everybody is going to agree with me on this, and I want to wrap this up real quick, so we'll bear that in mind. But there's got to be a screw loose. I really genuinely believe, if you think you want to be a writer, right? For you to sit by yourself in a room and spend your time putting your brain into other people's brains, so that you can generate the internal life of fake people. I don't think that's something a healthy person does. Right? But the problem is I don't think Tom King realizes that he's not healthy. I don't think Tom King realizes how screwed up he is. And so every one of his books ends up being Tom King's catharsis, because he's not dealing with his own stuff. Instead of realizing that he's a broken, flawed, a wretched person, and using that as grist for his creative mill to make engaging characters. And that's one of the things. And that's at the risk of armchair psychologizing, I think that's part of what's going on, is that he believes that he's one of the enlightened ones, and rather than understanding that he's there's a reason actors and artists were not let inside of city limits in olden times.
Why Aristotle? Why the Greeks saw them as subhuman?
and good old Uncle Socrates pointing out that the poet has nothing in his brain because he's the mouthpiece for the muses, right? And I think that's I think that's part of it, which is one of the reasons that I am so dedicated to the death of the artist, because we don't necessarily even know what we know.
Yeah.
So before we go, I have one final note of something that I rolled my eyes at, is that Tom King also not only creates these unhealthy situations and has characters that you don't like narrating it, he also seems to keep on having an axe to grind against other DC characters even when he's not writing them. And so we have Sovereign, who we're not supposed to believe, narrating in a way that we actually are supposed to believe when he's writing all this praise for Wonder Woman, which is really weird when you think about it. And at the very end of it, he's like, oh, you can reduce Batman and Superman to singular qualities as mirror images of their villains, but Wonder Woman and Cheetah defy this, and that makes them super special. And it was just like, no, it makes them actually weaker characters overall. They're good, but like the fact that Batman is so greatly associated with certain things makes him a better character. But like Tom King needed to make a point about the fact that because Wonder Woman has a weak rogues gallery, which she does, that somehow actually makes her a better character and makes her so much more special, because she and Cheetah as arch rivals cannot be put on a symbolic continuum.
Except you really can, but
I mean, like he has a point in the sense that, like, it's very clear that you have Batman often can symbolize order and Joker resembles chaos, but if you put like Cheetah next to Wonder Woman, it's like, like it's not as obvious what you're supposed to do with that.
Yeah.
But Tom King like parks.
That's what I'm talking about with Tom King believing he's one of the enlightened ones. He doesn't even realize that Wonder Woman has an exterior focus. Everything she does is for other people, and Cheetah in every one of her incarnations has an interior focus. It's all about what others can do for her. It's
but that's a little less obvious. It's a little less obvious, and that's okay. I'm just saying that like Tom King like makes it into a really big deal when it isn't.
I think this is what
I am not some sort of brilliant thing, and I can piece that together pretty easily.
So, Twitless, behind the scenes earlier, you said that you thought, or you wondered if Tom King was the Zack Snyder of comics. I'm starting to realize, is this what you meant by that? The guy who truly thinks he's a genius?
No, what I meant was that it's a guy who can do one or a couple of things really well.
Right.
And it holds.
But
it
he
actually,
thinks he's so much bigger.
I think Zack Snyder is like really good at like action scenes, and like they're really cool.
And literally nothing else, right?
And a lot of the other stuff suffers, and it's almost unfortunate because you end up with really. If you have a mediocre person who's mediocre at everything, then like you get a mediocre film. But with someone like Snyder, you get these really weird polar like ups and downs where something can be really good and then dip.
It's like if he was just good at thing and just did that one thing, then he would be Michael Bay, and he would just make big, silly, fun action romps, to enjoy.
Right. That's
but
Joshua.
Because he thinks he's a genius, then he has to go screaming about how both of them have mothers named Martha, and thinking that makes for a good story.
Joshua Williamson is basically Michael Bay, I've realized, and that's fine. King, King is like I said, he's kind of like Snyder. There's certain things I go, oh, I get you. These are some ideas, or this is good, and then it's like this is the other parts are this is just gosh awful.
Well, that's a really interesting that we compared them to both of them, because I was going to say later on that I think we should eventually get to a point where we compare this Wonder Woman comic to that same Superman comic.
Oh, I see. I actually think it's funny. I'm also reading Absolute Wonder Woman at the same time, and it's interesting to see, like that's where the Zack Snyder thing came into play. But
so I have to point out that we were talking about how Superman and Batman can be like pummeled and defeated, but Wonder Woman, it's different. Obviously, as a female character, there's always going to be more meaning in if a man beats her unconscious, there's going to be far more to that than just this is the villain, he's a bad guy, he's tough, which you would get if he beats Superman up or something. And I think that the modern culture has that. There's a lot of things that you can't do in the mind of a liberal,
Well, yeah,
it's kind of like how the new Superman cartoon, they made Monsieur Mala and the Brain good guys because they're gay, and you can't have gays be bad guys, so they're good guys now. And there's just, I have no problem with these guys are bad and they're gay, and that has nothing to do with why they're bad. But there's other people who are like, you can't do that. They're gay. They have to be good people. And it's like, you can't. Yeah. She's a woman. She can't fail, because that would be bad if she failed. It's okay if a man fails. It's not okay if she fails. There's all this thinking that you can't let her lose, and that's why we get these girl bosses that beat up 250-pound guys and their little pipsqueaks, because they're girls and they have to win because they have to. And in the minds of the person who's writing, they put in their own limitations, and so that, I think there's a lot of that in here, which is why it's written the way it is.
So before I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. And when there is so much in this that, like, it's so frustrating, because on the one hand, and we'll talk more about this in a few moments, but in so much of this is like Tom King and this whole feminist enterprise is dedicated to both making feminine characters, female characters, not feminine, both making female characters some sort of sacred cow that cannot be touched, and cannot be lowered, cannot be realistic, cannot be sullied in any way, but also eroding and ignoring and making a non-entity out of or making a nonsense out of sex distinctions, right? Mm-hmm. There is no such thing as male or female, and yet at the same time, the female is the goddess and it cannot be besmirched. And that's super frustrating in this particular story, but not actually this particular story, in this series as a whole. We'll get to that, because that'll come full around. I don't want to get too far into that. But before we go on to the next page, I do want to take some time to talk I want to talk about this page, because all of the nonsense that is ignore everything that's being said. I just love, like, the way the invisible plane is being used here.
I was going to say,
that's all I want to say.
To an annoying extent, but someone was having way too much fun in this issue in general, dealing with this invisible plane.
Yes.
There was like one or two awkward shots that I was like, I don't know about that one, but I agree.
Well, I think they knew that, though, right? That was the whole point.
You're right.
But like with the canopy coming down here, I mean, I just love this list plate. Okay,
it makes me realize this would be the worst thing to actually have to deal with ever, right? Like, who would actually want to have to get inside this thing, get out of it, deal with the controls? Like, that'd just be horrifying.
Well, inside you see that it is perfectly visible inside. It is basically an outside cloak.
There's a panel where she pushes an invisible button.
Yeah,
that's inconsistent with the way it's been shown in previous issues.
Well, that was a setting that was available that they showed in Tom King's Best Day Ever story. That was we can do this, but we don't want to do it for too long, is I think what they said on it. But anyhow, so the issue ends up with a one of those world's finest stories featuring the Wonder Tot and a Damien who is getting older, and a John Kent who is somehow not aging at all from being 17. He just stays 17 forever. And then the next several issues fall into the Absolute Power event.
I can very quickly summarize that, and also summarize the hilarity of how this fits into DC editorial. So you have a situation where it actually relates to House of Brainiac, which we read. So Amanda Waller gets the Brainiac Queen and uses that and a few other things to basically create a plot to essentially take over the world and remove all superheroes from it and institute her own control. So she, with her own shadow government powers, uses AI deepfakes to discredit the Justice League, make them all look bad, and then uses that as the impetus to then pull in the Amazo, protocols that she's developed that then strip every superhero of all their power. She cuts off the routes of magic largely. She basically takes the superheroes down to about 5% of their abilities and power. Most of them are completely depowered at that point, and their technology gets leached as well. So even people who have technology don't have access to it.
Because that makes sense. Sure, why not?
Yeah.
I mean,
Poor Cyborg. Isn't that
part
keeping him alive?
that part doesn't bother me so much. The weird part is that when you try to intersect that with what's going on here, it doesn't fit, because we have a storyline about how there's a secret shadow government that's really running everything behind the scenes, and then Tom King has to then interrupt his storyline about that very concept with Absolute Power, which is about secret government people
Yet
taking over the
another
world,
secret
and
villain.
they don't really connect at all with each other. So like it's the same concept. So it's like somebody in my opinion, someone at editorial. I'm not blaming Tom for this, because Tom would have pitched his storyline, right? And I've got my storyline's going to go on for like 100 issues or something, and then DC editorial, in their infinite wisdom, in terms of scheduling these things, interrupted Tom King wants to do that birthday party story, which came out of nowhere, and they had to say this took place at some other point. And so we're reading this Sovereign storyline. We get interrupted with the Batman birthday story, if you recall. And then so that's one issue. And then for like another like 3 issues, so that's 4 issues of a run where you're just getting interrupted with, actually this happens some other time, and we're and now for something completely different, now we return you to your regularly scheduled program. And it's like, it's so disorienting. And then to have the derail be a storyline that's essentially the story you're telling, but just honestly kind of cooler, because when Amanda Waller does her cool Absolute Power thing, it's actually neat and impacts the whole universe, and it's cool, and everyone gets involved and has to fight back. And this is just Wonder Woman being like, I'm fighting the real ruler of America, and it's like, okay, but none of the rest of the Justice League are helping, but this guy really runs America. What? Like, anyway, it's just bizarre. So that's editorial's fault. That's the editors and their story conferences and figuring out when you're scheduling things. Like, someone botched the scheduling really badly when it came to Wonder Woman's intersection with this. Well, it's bad.
That's hilarious. Wonder Woman's like, but I'm fighting the real bad guy. Sure you are, sweetie.
I know. That's what I'm saying. So, but like, the timelines for this, because like when they jump into Absolute Power, they say this takes place during Absolute Power, and it's like, where does Absolute Power run in terms of the timeline with what we're doing with Sovereign? And they don't. It's not clear. So it's really bizarre. And it's that again, like I said, DC who. I remember, was it Mike Carlin when they were doing Death of Superman? Like, they had to go and look at their timeline, and they had to say, we're doing this here. We want this to happen here. We want the wedding to come after this. So we have to do these storylines. We have to synergize this with the Lois and Clark TV series. Like, it took work to fit those puzzle pieces together.
Well,
so
same thing with Nightfall. Nightfall was in the same boat. They had years and years of planning before they even started that.
And it just seems that things are being done a bit slapdash with how they're doing these events in some cases. So that's also, like I said, that's not Tom King's fault. I'm just saying it's unfortunate that this all happens.
Chuck Dixon talked about how he was on Nightfall and all the other subsequent Bat gatherings, but the last one, when they were doing Bruce Wayne Murderer, which was right before he left, he said it had just completely changed, because I think Denny O'Neil was gone by then, or he was mostly passing things off to the other editors, and it was just, they're like, okay, the guy writing it, he knows this, and we'll tell you, the rest of you, what you can do. And it's like, and the one guy knows the story because he's writing the whole thing, and it's not well coordinated, and there's a lot of these crossovers that since the Dan DiDio era is just kind of, they're not as well constructed as they used to be, not but editorially.
Well, and side note, it looks like we lost Cartoonicus, which is unfortunate.
He's having storms in his area.
Well, hopefully he's all okay. I really wanted to get his input on 14, but before we get into that,
this panel
side note we want to hit on really quick is Hutch read through part of Absolute Power, and as we've talked on stream, Hutch and I are both big fans of Elongated Man and Plastic Man and all that kind of stuff. And in this panel, it's Ralph Dibney, the elongated man, is talking about punching a guy without superpowers and how different it feels, and it actually kind of hurts hitting somebody without stretching powers. And Plastic Man says, "Wait, your stretching doesn't hurt?" And that doesn't make any kind of sense.
No. As I was explaining, Plastic Man is constantly changing shape, which he wouldn't be doing if it was hurting him to do it. And it's not. I guess they're trying to do some kind of thing where it always hurts when Wolverine's claws come out, but he lives through it. He just bears with it because
Okay, wait. There's one thing that might be explained. This could be just a bad way of it being conveyed. But remember, again, these guys have been depowered, and Plastic Man has a cast. So I'm assuming that he tried to stretch when he was depowered. His arm broke. So I'm wondering if there's something that's being poorly conveyed, but it's not like, oh, do you see what I mean? Like it might be
Maybe
because if he broke some limbs while stretching because he got depowered, they might be more referencing their current depowered state.
Possibly. I really do think that they're trying to say that there's a difference between these two, that elongated man stretching doesn't hurt, but it's weirdly it's not the way that it should be. If anything, it should take real exertion and effort on Ralph's part, and for Plastic Man, he's constantly changing shape all the time. Like it clearly is no bother to him. So it's a weird thing, but this is Tom King. This is actually not the absolute power. This is the crossover issues.
Okay.
And so this is still Tom King.
I was going to not blame King for this stupid line, but like
no, it's all King. So there you go.
Still King. But like I said, it might be. But I'm willing to give the possibility because he is wearing a cast there. It might have.
I see that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just happy to see elongated man in anything. So.
Like disgrace or murder or whatever.
The thing I noticed about that is it immediately makes me think of the first X-Men movie with Logan saying, hurts every time, right? When his claws come out. And then I was thinking about the fight on the beach with Cheetah strangling Wonder Woman. And I'm thinking he probably did not come up with that without having seen the end of, Invincible. Right? And I'm like, is Tom King just really ripping off a whole bunch of pop culture stuff and we're not realizing it?
Maybe. We certainly have referenced the in the last thing. I can't remember if I'm Scott saying it along, but I kept thinking about it's like the Most Dangerous Game, but the Sappho Island edition. So.
If that was a reference to the Most Dangerous, I did not pick up on that. But if it was, it was pretty poor because the Most Dangerous Game is a battle of wits. Like that's the whole point of that is a battle of wits.
Yeah, but it would be real easy to stereotype it basically into just the concept of, oh, I'm hunting someone, right?
Yeah.
I don't know.
In any case,
right.
So
if we want to get to the issue 14, we should probably
we're skipping 11. We're skipping 12. We're talking about just a little bit from 13, really quick, which is here's Steve and Wonder Woman locking lips. That's how issue 13 starts, because somewhere Steve got kidnapped, right? After, which is one of those things that, once again, doesn't make sense with the last story, but somewhere in between the pages, Steve got kidnapped and Wonder Woman gets involved and goes into the adventure and gets a crew together to go ahead and capture or to rescue Steve. And she rescues Steve, and this whole issue is them smooching as they're making their big escape. And the little word bubble saying gross off to the side there, that is in fact Robin. And
when did they become Star Wars characters?
Oh, they're wearing extra armor because they don't have powers.
They're depowered, so they're having to. That's fine. It's very clear that story takes place in a very different moment because, like, even her hair is a different length. So but it's still weirdly communicated because if you're like, we're gonna interrupt your story for a story that happened either before this or after this. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like you're just lining up confusion for your readers, and it's
whenever this happens, I generally assume that it's probably due to DC causing them to have 15 stories going all at once, and you have other things that are happening in between in other titles that we're not seeing.
No, that this is the absolute power. I know the story. It's just it's unclear as to where in the timeline. Does this happen before the Sovereign storyline or after? It's like I said, it's not particularly clear. As a reader, sometimes you just feel like it's just your story's being interrupted.
This is not supposed to be in order with the rest?
No. I mean, yeah, sort of. It is and isn't, right? And that's part of the thing.
To be fair, at the end of the island story that we were watching, it could really there's no pressing thing to get back to the Sovereign. I mean, they're basically they were sent to the island and now they're leaving on a plane. You know, the impetus is gone. It's like the Sovereign's off plotting. He's basically given up his control of her by dropping her off on the island. So it's kind of okay that there's a skip, sort of. Yeah.
And so we'll go back to the Sovereign in a moment, but we'll go ahead and finish out 13 really quick, talk and look at it. So they're getting ready to make their big escape, walking through a portal here. It's not entirely clear how long Zatanna can keep these dark portals open. Is that everyone? Ice says, no, I don't believe so. And Robin looks back because, oh, look, they're kissing again. And they keep kissing. It's like, oh, we should go. Yeah, we really should. Kissing, clothes are coming off. Great. Thanks for showing us that, Tom King. So
I'm okay with showing Wonder Woman with Steve. That's fine.
I'm not a big fan of Wonder Woman and Steve going down on each other in front of a 13-year-old kid.
Yeah, in a prison. I mean, go through the portal and then reunite. They're struggling to keep a portal open. It's going to fall any second, and they're just standing there joking and goofing around. And it's like, it's like even these meaningless stories are badly written.
I don't know. I'm okay with this. This doesn't. I'm okay. That's
okay. So then
sorry.
Well, which is fine. The reason I'm bringing up there that they are specifically having sex in front of a 13-year-old kid because that actually plays a factor in what goes on in issue 14. And it's super important for what goes on in issue 14 from a large picture. So let's really quick catch up, just a little quick. I'm going to zip through it. So in the end of 13, you've got another one of these, the secret origin of Trinity, daughter of Wonder Woman. And basically, just to zip past it, it's all of the events of Wonder Woman, absolute power from Robin's perspective. So if you've read through it, like the dialogue's not the same and the events aren't the same. And Damian is looked to be a lot more personable and a lot more reasonable because he's telling the story. And then here it is, page 1 all over again. And instead of Damian saying gross, he says, oh, how nice, right? And then it's all super truncated, end of the story. I want you to know how much I appreciate all that you've done to help me get Steve back. Oh, sure, you're like another mom to me, and that's the whole thing. And then it ends up with we are Damian all grown up, John all grown up, whatever her name is all grown up, and it leaves the implication about who is Trinity's real dad. It's all left here to be continued in the thing, right? And remember, we just saw these two people preparing to have sex in front of a 13-year-old. That's important.
I never took it as that they were actually going to have sexual intercourse right
there was ruffled clothes on the floor. I don't know how else you're supposed to take it.
I didn't pick up on that either. What?
And he says to her, though, that's how you came to be.
Yep.
Oh.
And this was the moment that broke me months ago. If you recall, I had been staying out of the stream for a while because the only thing I found good about anything for 14 issues was that little tie-in with the Trinity, not the Trinity, but the three of them at the end of every book. And I know not everybody agrees with me on that, but I had been saying that like that one little story at the end of every book was 10 times better, if not 100 times better than anything that ever happened in one of these issues.
I hated the World's Finest. I'm sorry.
I liked some of them. I hated some of them. They were super inconsistent
But
with how it
could
was.
any of
And
them
part
have
of it was,
actually been worse than anything in the rest of the real comic, right?
Yes. I really did not like it.
I didn't care for them. I didn't care
All
for
I
them.
know is I found myself reading, just skipping through every issue and reading only those. And then I get to this, and it hits me. This entire time they have been setting up for this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, we go into the final issue here, and you'll understand why I say that.
yeah. So, Wonder Woman, we're seeing Wonder Woman walking toward a beach and throwing all of her clothes off, which is weird because it's like, wait, we just had this happy ending, this reunification, tacky though it may have been, in the last issue.
Right, hold on. Did you just say, oh, Wonder Woman is walking on a beach and she's taking off her clothes off? Weird. I think you meant to say awesome.
No, it's
Well,
weird
I
that
did
she's
say-
taking all her clothes off, but she doesn't actually.
I thought they never removed the bracelets because they contained their rage or something like that.
Yeah,
I don't know.
maybe.
I guess that's not the current mythology, but yeah, she couldn't take them off. Oh well.
So then we're like, he's walking toward the beach for whatever's that about, and then we have the Sovereign. Oh my goodness, he just shot Steve.
Mm-hmm.
What? Out of nowhere, with no explanation. You know, the consequence of our killing Steve.
And the thing is, I think it took like 6 pages before I even realized that was supposed to be Steve.
He's
like some guy, right?
Tom King is fragmenting the storytelling, and I don't know if some of it's how much of it's on purpose as a strategy, or how much of it is what. But it is disorienting at times. That's all I can say about that.
Mm-hmm.
So
he thinks he's Clive Cussler.
He does have a name tag right there telling you it's Trevor.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah,
Marines. So the whole and this is oh. So, what is the point of Steve Trevor? Right, is the name of the story. We're gonna start by killing Steve, and then we're gonna say, now, why does this character Steve Trevor keep existing and keep being useful in the mythology of our Wonder Woman character? Now that we're taking him off the table entirely, what's going to happen next?
Well, considering we all know nobody stays dead in comics anyway.
No,
Yeah.
Honestly, there are parts of this issue I liked. It was like where they end. Again, maybe it's just the execution again, but where they end up is actually not half bad.
Oh, it's horrible.
Well, okay. Once again, I'm going to point out that not that long ago, Steve died in the movies. So again, is this another possible thing he's just ripping off because once Hollywood done is that it gives him an idea?
No, it's most definitely not, and we'll talk about that one. I don't want to get ahead of the game here. I want to kind of set the stage up there. So, we have, I cannot remember who this character is reinvented. Anyway, it was but
it's a distant
Steve
cousin.
It's her cousin or something like that, or a friend.
It's a distant cousin. It's not even his like real it's like it was like I said, it was like once removed.
Something like that. And she takes the flag, Steve's flag, and she's just crying over it, the whole business. She's really sad. And then we have the Fates, right? And
by the way, there's some symbolism there, right? You have Wonder Woman cradling the American flag, weeping over it. Like that's I mean, you can take that symbolism however you want, but I feel like that was Tom King on on several election evenings.
Yeah.
Maybe so, but I will simply point out that Steve was in the United States military.
No, that's fine. It works both ways. It works both ways.
That could very well. Oh, in fact, wait a minute. That's what's broken there at the top. I just realized that. She took the flag out of the box.
That's his flag.
That's
what's going on.
It's a fine moment. That moment is fine, and I like the fact that Steve matters enough to her for her to be emotionally broken up about it. That's fine. Like I'm having a little.
I don't know who goes and grabs a flag and cuddles it like a blankie. I mean, it's like that's the important thing to. I mean, Steve never wore a flag. It would make more sense for her to be holding something that's. I mean, America's important to him, yes, but you know what I mean. It's not a personal object.
Yeah.
It's.
Yeah,
Let's
I mean,
just
like,
say it's more for the symbolism
Sure.
than for any
Well, here's the
logical,
thing.
rational.
if
If
it
you
was
wanted-
his, if it was his workout togs or something that had his smell on it or something like that.
Yeah,
that would
exactly.
make a little more
That's
sense.
yeah.
Here's the
I'm
thing.
with you on that.
If that was the case, you would have to do all this setup to somehow tell us that this was something important of his. Whereas just by handing him the traditional flag, you get,
Yeah, I'm with
then
Cartoonicus
she
on this
can
one. I
easily
think
break that open and use it.
I think it's okay. It's passable.
I don't think it'd take that much setup to say, I took his, his whatever they call him. I can't remember the duty
The
clothes.
memorial flag. Yeah, that
Yeah.
is
It's
handed.
Tom.
To them.
He doesn't do any setup.
Oh, come
Well,
on.
that's
That's not Tom does set up. Tom does set up. Like that's.
It wouldn't even be in a frame. It would be in a triangle shape. That's
Yep.
where they fold them into that triangle, and they have a frame that is a triangle.
I
so
never
he isn't
accused
even
him of
getting that
doing his
right.
research.
So anyway, moving
All
on.
right, moving on. Yeah.
We've got this whole thing with the fates that'll be a factor in the play. We've got the Sovereign talking about how he's gonna kill Steve with a gun that he got from somewhere that doesn't matter at all. I'm sure it's in there. I
think that was from issue. He had remember in the earlier issue. That's a callback because he does set stuff up. So this is like issue very early on. Sovereign had these like special artifacts. Remember, I collected all these things. This was like he had a bunch of like of the bad American stuff. Like he had like Benedict. Was that the pistol that killed Lincoln? It was something like that.
I think
It was
it's something like that. Yeah.
I have the pistol that killed Lincoln. I'm gonna kill you with it. Ha ha ha. John Wilkes Booth, the Confederacy. Yeah, it was that type of thing. Yeah, it was something like that.
Boy, you'd better make sure that fires properly before you use it.
Yeah. So anyway, then you have this whole deal where they are on the cathedral. They're having one of their secret meetings. Oh, it's so whatever. Oh, look, Steve's dead. I'm trying to get through this really quick because the thing is it doesn't. None of this stuff
jumping
matters.
back and forth. Yeah.
None of this stuff matters. It's a sad thing for a lot of people because Steve mattered, and can't find Steve. Oh, look, she's waiting for Steve, and then Clark and Bruce tell her, "Oh my goodness, your boyfriend's dead."
That moment was that was a sweet moment. I kind of liked that. She's like, "I know you're there. You can stop hiding." They all just they're just quietly there for her. That's a good character beat. Again,
it's a fine character beat, but none of it matters. And that's the part of it is Steve is so inconsequential to this story that none of it matters. Steve is, in fact, that's my takeaway to this whole thing is that this entire issue is that regardless of how you feel about it, men are inconsequential, and so are women.
I have to interject here because I think there's some clues dropped in here, and again, this is Tom King's mistake. Again, I'm not praising him for this. But it's like they keep dropping these little hints about, oh, this is going to happen in the future, or this won't be our fit. I'm pretty sure Tom King is doing like actually 30 issues ago because this is going to go on for 70 issues. You know what I mean? Like he's doing that again. Yeah. And so I think this will ultimately matter. But I can understand and even agree with the fact the way it's being presented. Maybe it doesn't seem that way because of how
we'll get to that. We'll get to that. So here once again, here's the all of Wonder Woman's forgettable enemies that had no impact on the story at all.
Are these days after all these numbered days? Are these days after his death? Is it like he dies on phase one?
Some are days before. So,
okay.
Yeah.
It's really hard to follow this the way it's back and forth. Yeah,
and especially when I'm zipping through so fast. So she swims down bottom of the ocean and she comes out the other side, and there she is. Move on past
and that was kind of vaguely presented too. She swims and then suddenly she's in like the river Styx.
Yeah.
So that was also a little like not greatly fragmentedly presented.
Mm-hmm.
So then it mentions that she's been gone forever and nobody knows what happened to it. And then here we got they were looking for this thread, and there it is. And somebody tore some of the thread off the edge of what's his name's
Steve Trevor.
Steve Trevor's life. Somebody pulled some of the thread off somehow. And there it is. Steve is on the river Styx, and Wonder Woman's found him sitting there waiting for Karen to show up. And look at that. They're having their little...
No, wait, don't forget the part that was cool where Steve... Normally, these books with Wonder Woman really do undersell the male characters so that Wonder Woman can look better. This is one of those moments that I actually appreciated because they let Steve be so badass that he beat up Karen.
That's right.
Like, that was neat. And Wonder Woman's like, you realize these are gods? And Steve just kind of like, oh, shucks, I don't really care much for gods. And I was like, yeah, American hero. And there's the bones of Karen. He give him a good old American right hook. And I was like, thank you, Tom King, at least for giving us that much.
Okay.
This is
if he beat
that's
up,
neat. That was cool. And I'm like,
it is profoundly not. It is.
How is that not cool?
It is sentimental slop to make you distracted from the real point of the story. Absolutely, and I will make my case of it once we get to that. I'm not there yet. But.
Look, if I can point out, I can understand if Twitless is desperately trying to find anything he can appreciate in these comics.
Yeah,
no,
let him have this.
There are far tougher people who've gone to Hades and have wanted to deck the fact that Steve is like the only person who could do it. It really doesn't make any sense. It just makes him look tough for a few moments, but it doesn't make any sense.
I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. Okay.
Okay.
Also, in case you thought he was really tough, here he is asking his girl if he can kiss her like they've never met before.
Right.
Consent is important, guys.
Yeah, consent is important, but
not after the 50th time you've kissed. I think they've kissed more than once. I think you can take it, consent as implied at that point.
It's funny because he didn't. I don't think they were asking for permission when they were making out during Absolute Power. So
yeah. Very much so. It's just there because once again, this is part of
the baggage. This is what I'm telling you. This is the baggage. This is the baggage that Tom King is. That's what I'm telling.
This is not the baggage. This is the point. We'll get to that. Okay, so that he says, maybe we can figure out some way to be together. Steve's like, nah, man, now it's time to go on to the next adventure. I'm dead after all, and you're a god, and that's how it's going to be. And so she comes on back, and here we have day one. It's day one after they got out of the thing. That's what it is. It's the day one from escaping. That's what all those days are. They're the days since escaping from the thing. And so she takes. So here's the thing. Here's the thing. So now we're back after she's met with the ghost of Steve Trevor. She takes some of her hair and she squeezes it until it's two threads, part of her thread and part of Steve's thread, because that makes sense.
Again, I'm okay with the mythic character doing something. Right. It's actually kind of an honor to him in a way.
Yeah. So even though this doesn't actually make sense, but let's pretend that it does. And because because she wasn't there, her actions got this together, right? So anyway, point is there we have a glowing thread. She makes a baby out of the glowing thread, and there's that's the baby comes from, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Can I just point out that she names it Elizabeth Marston Prince, and that he said that his grandmother's name was Elizabeth and he really liked her. He suddenly throws that out. Like he's never mentioned it the whole time he's known her, but he says, hey, could you remember her in some way?
That was well, because it's Marston, right? He says because Elizabeth Marston, and Marston is the maker. Yeah. So that was just I know who, I'm doing a deep cut to comic book lore there.
Yeah. But she doesn't even give they never got married, so she gives it her fake last name instead of Trevor. It's like she still can't. She wants to honor him in every way except actually giving the baby dad's last name.
That would be it. Again, this is where you're trying to thread that needle really hard. Hard with feminism, right? Because taking the man's name would have been.
But here's the baby's last name.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing that it is, right? They make no bones about these two being a sexually active couple.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
But Tom is so dedicated to this perverse concept of feminism that sex can be fun, but it can't be anything more than that.
Yeah.
The only way Aquaman can have a baby now for Aquaman, I mean not for Aquaman, for Wonder Woman to have been made by clay when there weren't any men around, that seems mythical.
Mhm.
For Wonder Woman, having been involved in a long-term committed sexual relationship to have a baby and having just had ridiculous amounts of sex in public for her
In front of
in
13-year-olds.
front of 13-year-olds to not be to, I mean, and you can say, oh, well, the time didn't line up. Oh, sure, you can, women can get pregnant 3 days a month, whatever, fine. But to say for story purposes, okay, that these two, it's not their sexual congress or the nature of their relationship that creates this new offspring, is this magic hoodoo jubu, forgetting that sex is the magic.
Right.
That we're long-term committed relationships are the magic. You love somebody enough that love becomes a child.
Okay.
Mhm.
I'm very much.
And
I'm
that
very
is
much
not what is going on here.
I'm very much a trad, but you might be reading a little
this
into this.
story. No, it's not. It's the whole point. This
It is.
story is Gnostic to its core. It separates the incarnated from the spiritual to such an extent that anything vaguely procreative can't be procreative at all, because that would mean that men and women have different functions within the cosmology of the human experience.
They
Okay.
also didn't want to have her sidelined as pregnant.
Okay, I was
for
about to
9
say that
months.
we didn't want to have
Which
9
wouldn't even
months
be
of
9 months
her.
our time,
Honestly,
just
when I
saying,
first read it,
yeah.
I just took it as
She's not
symbolic.
on the run from the government. She sure couldn't have spent 9 months off panel
Okay,
at the friggin' at Paradise Island, for crying out loud.
I just
Yeah.
I'm not there. I'm not saying that reading is not. I'm not saying it's an invalid reading, but it is a reading, and there are alternate ways that are more generous to what's going on.
Yeah.
Can I just say that when I first read it, I didn't understand what she was doing with the hair. I thought that the creating of the sand sculpture on the beach was just symbolic to her creation, and that the baby was coming.
No, it's made. No, no.
And
Rhys
this
is
is
right. That is how the baby is made.
And this is the thing.
Yeah.
Here's the thing: is Abigail is 100% right. There are other Wonder Women to help. That's been another theme in the story. And in the next issue, Wonder Woman's. You say you don't want to be in sidelined. She is. She
Yeah.
is sidelined with an infant. She is not out there doing Wonder Woman stuff. She's doing an Oracle thing, commanding all the troops from back home while she's got a
True.
baby on her hip.
We aren't going to talk about. We're going to
No,
stop
we're not
talking
gonna go
about
any
Wonder
further
Woman
than
here, right?
Yeah.
So I can just tell you that Wonder Woman does nothing. Detective Chimp and Superman take down the Sovereign, and
Well,
while
okay.
Wonder Woman sends them out to do her bidding while she's a mom. It's really weird.
What's crazy though
Yeah.
is isn't that the most anti-feminist thing you could possibly do?
Oh,
Well,
sure.
no, 'cause she's in charge, and she didn't actually. And once again,
She's the mastermind.
She had a child without any suffering, without any skin in the game,
Mhm.
right? She
And
had
now
an
is staying
emotional
home,
moment,
take care
but
of
she
it,
didn't.
while the men go out and do all the work.
She
Yeah.
didn't embody the experience, right? Because that's the other thing about it is when you watch that child grow up in your wife's belly. Because here's the thing about it, right? The thing about this whole Steve thing, right, that bothers me so much is it is a man's job to throw himself into the meat grinder of the world to support his wife and children.
Mhm.
That is what a man's job is.
Okay,
Right?
This is okay. One thing I do have to counter this with is you. I'm not saying I don't.
Right? No, I know.
Wonder Woman is the feminist book, so
Yeah.
if you have an if you have an
but she's
alternate
not
take,
female.
it still needs to fit
She's not a female.
feminist vision.
She's not a woman in any sense of the word.
Mhm.
She's
I
not
don't know.
feeding the woman
I'm
from
not
her
buying. I don't know if I buy that.
She's not feeding the child from her body. She's not didn't go
okay,
through morning sickness.
That's not fair. There are many women who can't go through that and are still women.
Person, Twitless. She's a myth, And in this myth, in this conceptual idea,
she's not just a myth. Even Umberto
Yeah.
Eco says this. So you're halfway between a myth and a novelistic character. That's what makes them an interesting and fascinating blend.
Right. But what I'm
Yeah.
saying is, because she's not real, she's a concept. She's an idea. Right.
Well, it's like I
idea
said about
that
how
womanhood is not connected to the embodied female experience.
Yeah, but it's like I said about how, she can't be beaten up the same way Superman and Batman can't, because it has extra meaning. I've often wondered what you can do with Wonder Woman. Like, could she ever get married to Steve? Could she ever be pregnant without some feminists getting really mad about it as being, this is our feminist ideal and you're doing that with her? Then there's going to be other people who are like, that's perfect. I mean, even Gal Gadot, who played Wonder Woman, when she was pregnant, she put up a picture of a pregnant Wonder Woman and said, my superpower is making children. And I thought, that's cool, except they'll never do that with the actual Wonder Woman, But Gal Gadot's, by the way, it's had 4 kids. And it looks amazing. So it is possible to have 4 kids and still look like Wonder Woman. But yeah, there's a lot of people who would really be really mad if you ever married her off. That's why they never did it pre-crisis until the last issue of the comic. It was like, finally we're marrying her off because we're killing her off next month.
So to be semi-fair here, we rarely marry off any character.
No, but you're right. But Wonder Woman has Hutch is right. Wonder Woman, because she, and this is
I totally understand. That's why I said semi-fair. I just wanted to point that out.
Wonder Woman is a very special case because, like I said, she is, as opposed to other characters we've seen who have been taken to be like Mockingbird. Mockingbird was a regular character, and it's like, ask me about my feminist agenda. That's something that was foisted on her in recent years. Wonder Woman was birthed in feminism, and there's no argument against that, like, or that you can bring against that. Like, Marston is like, I'm a male feminist of the 1940s.
Marston is a male feminist in the exact same stripe as Joss Whedon, where feminism is a great excuse for conniving women into fulfilling your sexual fantasies.
I'm just saying.
And so that's exactly what we're seeing here. Is we're seeing the sexual fantasy that is not connected to an embodied experience.
So my point, Rhys, is that
in doing that, he's trying to say, no, we can have a maternal Wonder Woman that doesn't have all that messy pregnancy stuff.
Rhys, I understand why that
at the baby store, it'll be fine.
I understand why it bothers you. I do. My point is that what you just said supports the idea that Tom King is writing Wonder Woman on brand. And that the problem we have isn't with Tom King's Wonder Woman. The problem is fundamentally with Wonder Woman herself. And that was the thing I was trying to separate as we read this, is what are the things that is Tom King being sucky as a writer, and which are the things that I just don't like Wonder Woman as a character personally because it may conflict with how I see the world. And those two are separate camps.
There definitely may be something to that. There definitely may be something to that. But I just hate it. I hate everything about this story. I can't. And the other side of it that is so frustrating is it absolutely in every way makes Steve a nothing character, a nonsense character. He doesn't have any impact. He has no legacy. He has nothing to carry it on from him. He's just he might as well be in our modern world, he might as well just have gone down to the sperm bank and just picked him out of a catalog. There's a nothing. I mean, Steve is a nothing. He's a worthless character as portrayed, and everybody else is just there to.
I don't think I fully agree with. I can't go that far because Tom King is in this issue is doing everything that he can. I'm not saying it obviously doesn't play to what you're saying or how you saw it, but the whole issue, including the very end, if you want to pull up the line where it says that. And I kind of appreciated this in a Marston didn't even go this far. Marston was kind of like, oh, Trevor is just like this guy that she moons over. But Tom King went so far as to say that Wonder Woman may be the sun, but Steve Trevor is like the shadow cast by the sun, and the two of them cannot be without each other. Like he ties together Steve in a celestial way to her myth. And then by having his hair be a part of the child,
it's not his hair.
The sun doesn't cast a shadow. It only gives off light.
Yeah,
no, on the Earth.
It's not his hair. It's only her hair. That's the thing that doesn't make any sense.
It's his thread. It's his thread because like she says some of it's missing. So she's got because she has his. No, that's right. She has his.
Doesn't have. That's what I'm trying to say.
No,
she pulls off her hair.
Hold on. What happens? Because like this again, this is Tom King's. It's not easy to parse this out, which we can put at Tom King's feet. But the reading I have of it is that because he says, "You have some of my It comes out that she has some of his soul, and
Yes.
then that's essentially implied to be that missing piece of thread. So she has a mythical representation of the essence of Steve, for want of a better word, and that is what is put in that child, and that is a mythic in the as opposed to the way Tom King's presenting it. There is a reading that says that as opposed to just having a kid in a normal way, Steve has now been made a part of myth. He gets to be part of the mythic way of making a baby, which is how she was made. And there's a sort of synergy there. I'm not discounting your reading of that, but Tom King is doing everything he can in this issue, which he hasn't done in other issues where he's undermined, like poor Steele, who just gets, jobbed and slapped around all the time. The Sovereign, who is just like denigrated and everything. But Tom King has done his darndest in this issue to unite Steve in a mythic way to Diana's story, and to make him united to her in a cosmic way. You are the sun, and I am the thing that is cast from your light. It's not just, oh, you're just this bloke, you're this worthless guy I just met, I could have substituted you for anyone else. She is like, no, you're my. And that's why I think it's also important that he gets to punch out Karen, because it's like, it elevates him. He gets to be by being associated with her. And this is what he says after he punches out Karen. It's like, oh, I guess my association with you is essentially giving me a sort of mythic quality. Steve gets to be kind of mythic because of their love for each other. And that Steve is doing his darndest to make Steve look very, very important. And
can I
upsell him the best he can.
Can I back up Twitless here?
Sure.
I think you're right that Tom King is doing his very best, and it is an example of how even at his best he cannot do it. Because I love Steve Trevor, and I got nothing from this issue about him that I didn't know about him before. It's like how if you've ever read the Identity Crisis book, that in the beginning, I forget who they had. Joss Whedon says, I bet there's nobody out there who actually likes Elongated Man or says their favorite character is Elongated Man. I'm like, me, but I get it. He thinks that he's being funny, and the fact that when you're reading this book, Brad Meltzer has to take the first half of the book to make you care about Sue Dibney, because there's tons of people who are like, you're killing off Sue Dibney. Who cares? There's a ton of people who just think that's stupid because who cares about her? And he has only a few pages to make you care about the Dibneys. And it was like to the point that I think it was Joss Whedon said he showed it to his wife and she was like, oh my gosh, you just feel so sad for them. It's like he manages in half a book to make you care about characters that a lot of people who aren't named me or Mark Waid, don't care about. And Tom King just doesn't have the ability to do that. He can take 12 issues and not make you care about a character anymore than he did at the beginning. Steve Trevor should be fully developed here. And I don't feel anything from this story for Steve. I like Steve, though, from previous writers who've done him, he just a few moments in the Brave and the Bold cartoon was better than this.
So okay, here's the thing is, I want to go back to something that you said though, Twitless, right?
Sure.
You said it's not just that he's interchangeable, except it is that he's interchangeable, because everything good about Steve is because he is casting a shadow from Diana's light. He's just an object.
I think that's going too far.
That's the thing. That's what you just said.
No, that's not.
Their relationship gave him something mystical. Well, that was it. It was their relationship. It was Diana that gave Steve this.
It's
It wasn't
implied
something
though
with
that there's
Steve.
something special about him, otherwise she wouldn't have picked him. Do you see what I mean? It's clearly like she
Yeah,
is the
when-
more
you know, when-
she
when-
is
when-
the son here, but like it's not that like she could have picked she wouldn't have picked just
when
anybody.
a naive girl picks the first guy she meets, it's obviously something about him.
Can I?
I mean
point out
that is
how-
just Wonder Woman issue 1 from Marston partially. So like again, it's on brand.
Can I point out how dumb it is though to make Diana the sun and Steve the moon when she is literally named after a moon goddess and he's
Yeah.
blonde.
Yeah. That's more thinking than Tom put into it. Jeez.
Everything and calling her the sun is very appropriate because everything in this issue is revolving around Wonder Woman exclusively, and not just because she's the main character. But it's like this issue in some ways is an inversion of the nature of the way the story was played out in that Cheetah issue that was so forgettable, because in that one it is very much Diana trying to reach out to Cheetah, trying to find that thing, and so much of Diana's character is about serving other people. And in this one, it's all about what can other people do to make Diana feel better about her crappy life.
And her boyfriend just died.
Yeah.
Well,
I gotta be fair
isn't
about
that part of the crappy life? But even in death,
But
does Steve listen to the angry rantings of Dylan Thomas and not go gently into that night? No, he's like, I had a good time. I gotta knock boots with a superhero. I think I'm done.
I mean, where else do you have to go but down after that?
So see, what I want to point out is what both of you have said here, though, where we have the entire world revolving around Wonder Woman on one hand, and then as Twitless is saying, he is technically putting more effort into this issue than he seems to have done so in literally any of the other.
No. I didn't say he didn't put. I said he's putting more effort into building up Steve. He's putting a lot of. I'm not talking about the general effort of the comic. I'm saying that this issue is the issue he devotes to, and that's why even
exactly. And that's my point. I think this issue is what he's been trying to build up to for the last 13 issues for over a year. While we sit here and watch these fragmented nonsense, he's got this idea in his head of this one specific issue he wants to get to, and this is his big, opus magnus.
But that's interesting. That's in itself is interesting to me because you have a feminist character written by a male feminist, and in Wonder Woman's world, the most important person to her is a man, and that's dangerous territory for a feminist storyline. Like that violates your Bechdel test. You know what I mean?
That's why you kill him off. That's why you kill him off.
He's not. No, that's not like this. He says things that are like, no, this is part of a larger. He's doing his 70 issue thingy.
Yeah. Okay, but here's how you know it's not going to end up. Here's how you know it's not going to end up the way you think it's going to end up, because we already saw the future with the kids. And does she know her dad? No. You know who's raising? Eddie Murphy Brown this nonsense, man.
No, they're doing no.
Rhys,
you know they're doing something with that because the future that they're pointing out is one that Sovereign is doing stuff with, and like it's clearly a future they probably have to avoid. Like if you get to future issues, like this is probably one of those.
No.
Well, because you have Batman that sucks, you have Superman that sucks, and you've got Amazing Lizzie who's the queen of the world, and Wonder Woman doesn't have time to raise her own daughter, so she shoves it off on her.
There are some events that are coming. There are some events that are coming where they clearly have to undo some things in terms of the timeline. Is all I'm saying.
But guys, this is exactly
well, that sounds
what
like
I'm trying to get at here. I need to get to this, okay? Because this, like Tom, I as well have been waiting 13 issues to get to this stream. There's a reason I have stayed out of every stream about Wonder Woman since the beginning until now and have come back into it, all right? Because the fact that this is the most important issue to Tom that he has been waiting all this time to get to, I need to point, I'm sharing a screen right now. We're going to go back to this here, okay? This is what it has all come down to. The fact that we've been using this World's Finest tie-in at the end of every book, the fact that we got in the previous issue, we got to this ending, the origin story of Trinity.
This is
And
not
now-
this is not the ending. This is like I said, it keeps
But it was
going.
foreshadowing, and now we have the actual origin story of Trinity. This is Elizabeth. That is Lizzie,
Yep,
right?
yep.
This is
Right.
the girl
Yeah.
we've been following along here in this tie-in in every issue for almost 13 issues now. This entire 13-issue story arc has been one giant advertisement for another comic.
No, I
thought the
that's
tie-in
cynical.
was supposed to be the advertisement.
No, it's more than that. That's just
So let's hit some stuff from the chat. I do love the Jim Tuner, the princeless trope. The Wonder Woman don't need no man. A woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle. That's just the facts, right?
What?
You know
Yes.
that, Jim.
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
So this is why they can be cosmically united as long as he's dead.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not to mention all the uniting on the floor of the jail. We'll
They
ignore that.
definitely did some of that, yeah.
Like, the irony is that because they're using the sticks thing, apparently she can just go see him anytime she wants.
There are rules about that. Anyway,
Are there? Because she shouldn't be there. You
that's
just
the
go
fact.
down in water and you come back up and you're in sticks, apparently.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
That was weird.
It's off the turnpike. I like it when we spin around and appear in a
Again,
costume.
we are still getting narrated by Sovereign, which again, there's the lie
Yeah,
thingy you might
that's
still
true.
get.
Yeah.
invoked.
That it could be. This all could be a lie. It could be just another one of Tom King's chump moves.
Sovereign isn't the only one who's lying,
That's
right?
my problem is that like the problem is I think that the whole like lie thing is more of an excuse at some points because I've read ahead. And
Yeah.
like I said, I get more disappointed at where this ends up because it was like, oh, you had all these cool tools about an unreliable narrator, and this is where we're at after 19 issues. Like, give me a break. So again,
this is really-
either he's going to tie it together in again 70, where it's like, who's going to last that long?
Yeah.
To back up my point about the baby store, Isaac says they use their DNA, but use the Mother Earth as a surrogate. Which-
Yeah, 70 issues. There's a lot of people who aren't into comic books after that. It's like you start out at age 12 and, around those issues, you might be 18, graduating and no longer interested in comics.
I know it's wild how long this guy wants to run this.
Yeah.
And would be interesting if it was a natural birth and a male child. That actually would shake up the whole paradigm. That would be something.
That's super risky.
I don't know that I ever
DC
told
seems
you.
to be obsessed with always creating another Wonder Girl.
Yeah. I don't know if I ever told you this, Matt, that back when I was pitching Elongated Man to DC, the whole point of my series was going to be that at the very beginning, Sue announces she's pregnant and they have to give up the life of being these public celebrities and move to someplace secluded. And the whole point was that for the comic would go for years and she would never start showing because it's going to take forever for her to have a baby in comic book time. Either that or you have to like have one issue and it's like, well, that was great going off to the time travel, the whole Bill and Ted thing where you just, time travel away, came back. Hey, it was a great 9 months. Here's the baby, and then, you could do that whenever you want to, if anybody gets sick of it, but,
Yeah, all you have to do is like slingshot around a star in a spaceship or something.
Yeah, but you can't. But Wonder Woman, you'd have to do the Bill and Ted thing because nobody would want her to be pregnant and fighting crime and going through beatings and who knows what not. So I get that, but I really would love to see some. This is why I don't think Steve Rogers is really dead. They say Steve Rogers, Steve Trevor is really dead.
We know
Now,
there's
a match.
I know. Every time I do this, you guys get sidetracked. Forget it. I just
Wonder Woman.
Never
had
mind.
Steve Rogers,
Never
baby.
mind. Yes, I know. But
it's
every
funny.
time I do that, you get way too obsessed about the fact that I'm not trying to talk about Captain America. I've just seen too much Captain America. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Anyway, but you know what? When I do get to write Wonder Woman in what is it, 7 years now?
Mm-hmm.
That's about the time that that Captain America is also public domain. So maybe I will do a Diana and the
no.
Two Steves comic book.
I think at this point you're obligated.
Wait. You can do an Archie, Betty, Veronica kind of a thing going on?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Which blonde do I like? Which blonde Steve do I like?
It's a tough choice. They're both kind of cool.
But anyway, I just I always wanted to do a pregnant character. I think that would be so much fun. But when it's a Wonder Woman level character, they want to use her for everything. So I understand you can't sideline her.
Yeah,
but at the same time, we've been expecting that the baby Lizzie all this time was going to be the kid of that Amazon in the first issue, the pool hall beating one who was pregnant. Yeah. And then she would give the kid to Diana to raise or something. That's what we thought was going to happen.
Oh no, I could tell in the early issues that they were making the three of them out to be equal to their
that was just a
I
mean, you can adopt a kid and it's still your kid. I mean, Superman is adopted.
Well, yeah, but
so yeah. But so what happens? See, here's the problem. This has been building with the Sovereign is a descendant of a family that has been the kings of America since it was founded, and we've had these secret kings that all presidents have bowed to and then gone out and lied about. Every president is a liar.
Yeah.
And,
I hate that.
Yeah, and what happens in a few?
It's not just
we're not
one,
going to do anymore. I just want to summarize. There's the next issue. The three Wonder Girls at Wonder Woman's bidding go out and destroy every bit of funding that the Sovereign has. Every his banks and his
they doge him.
Basically, yes. And they go find USAID is basically directed into his back pocket and they cut it off. But yeah,
thanks, Tom King. What a great idea.
So she's having all these characters, the four characters there, the three Wonder Girls and Cheetah go out and take out all his funding. And then in the next issue or the next couple issues, whatever it is, Detective Chimp shows up investigating the death of Steve Trevor, and because there has been a murder, he's got to investigate it, and he is doing Columbo the whole time. Oh, well, one more thing that we talked the other day, and he's doing that for the whole thing. And then meanwhile, Clark Kent just exposes the whole thing in the Daily Planet. And it's like, wouldn't this be a revolutionary level problem if this was revealed? I mean,
yes.
Now, granted, in the last week,
especially
we've had
since something like the Sovereign should have full control over the entire news media anyway.
Right. I mean, otherwise it would have come out at some point.
With the magic lie telling a lasso.
Right.
They lose. That thing broke. Broke.
Yeah, but it's kind of like the how Chuck Dixon had Nightwing go off to Bloodhaven, and Bloodhaven was thoroughly corrupt, and then Chuck left the title, and they wanted to take him away. So he had what's his name? Dick Grayson was on the police force, and he was building up to that. Then Chuck left, and they brought in Devin Grayson, and she's like, okay, so somebody finds a book that has all the secrets of the corrupt police, and they turn it over, and they publish it, and now Bloodhaven's done, and we're taking him elsewhere. And it's like, solved it, we're moving on. And it's like, that's kind of what it, you shouldn't be able to just expose this in the paper. And then everybody's like, oh, there was a secret king. Oh, okay. It's like, this should be a huge turmoil that would destroy the country. It would be all we talk about for the rest of the time. In the last week, it's been proven that Hitler lived past World War II, that the skull that they found was actually DNA tested as a woman. And Javier Milei of Argentina just said, yeah, he lived there for like 20 years. It's like, really? It's hard to believe they just dropped this, and it's a minor thing with all the stuff, all the things that are being exposed in the news lately. But you wonder, it's like, would this come out and would it destroy everything or what? But it's like in the DCU, nobody else outside is commenting on it outside of Wonder Woman. It should be a bigger thing. If it was a major crossover, it would be a bigger thing. But so maybe the issues that I've seen are not the finale, and maybe it's revealed that this is all a lie. It sounds like in some of the issues that I did read. Has anybody read the most recent issues?
Do we want to do this now?
I don't want to have another show talking about this. We all hate Tom King. Tom King sucks. We're done with this. We don't need another 9 issues of how much.
I have been holding on to this terrible secret all this time. What on earth is keeping me reading any more issues from here on out?
Right.
I mean, I'm a sunk cost fallacy completionist. So.
But comics never end. There is no final.
I do want to know if he was lying all along, and this is revealed as a big lie.
So that's the thing, is that it's not entirely clear, but it didn't seem like it was. But there's one lie that he tells that makes me wonder. So remember how he says only 2 people have resisted my lasso? He says it's Cheetah and Wonder Woman. So in issue 19, he looks at a picture of George Washington, and he says, this guy was the only guy who resisted so now there's 3 people who've resisted your lasso. And so I'm like, either there's been like a slip up in the writing, or that's a slip up for a character who lies.
Well, here's the thing.
He makes a comment about how George Washington could not be controlled by the lasso of lies, because he's the president who stepped down. Remember, he did not take more power. He said, no, I'm done. So
I thought it was a cherry tree thing, which was a fake story.
Yeah, no, it wasn't that. So so that made me go, okay, so maybe I'm supposed to doubt more of what Sovereign's saying, which would be a clever thing. But as of issue 19, and issue 19 has its own problems. You want another issue of like, oh my gosh, what's going on? Issue 19 was a disappointment.
Go ahead. Just summarize as quickly as possible.
It's like a 10-page humiliation ritual. First off, so she kicks down the door. Do you remember when she confronted him in the Capitol? She attacks, and they had the fight at the Washington Monument. They repeat that scene. So it's kind of frustrating, because it's like, we already did this. Why are we repeating a thing we already did? So they repeat that. But this time Wonder Woman just kind of sails through because she's more prepared. And so like Cheetah tackles Grail, which is like, there's no way Cheetah would be able to take on the daughter of Darkseid. I'm sorry. That's just not, they're not in the same tier. Like daughter of Darkseid would smack her away. But so Wonder Woman penetrates into the Oval Office, where Sovereign is very clearly in charge. So that's where it's like, okay, it's clearly not a lie that Sovereign is in fact has that much power, because he's sitting in the Oval Office. And so and she's like, she's here for her revenge for killing Steve. And Sovereign, like I said, it's a 10. I counted. It's like 9 to 10 page humiliation ritual where he's like pleading and he's begging, and this is where feels dirty, because you're just like, this is just Tom King exercising another weird fantasy of like having your enemy begging for you for like 10 pages. I'm like, normally superheroes defeat their villains and they're on to the next thing. 2 pages max of like dealing with this sort of thing, but like 9 pages of this. And the reason why it takes 9 pages is after he begs, she's like, take your shirt off. And so he's like taking his clothes off, and then she like, there's a very special dagger that's going to become part of the story moving forward, because the future that, like the far future that's happening here, has to do with the pool hall girl. She gives birth to a very special child herself, and that child is going to be the one who kills Wonder Woman in the future with this special dagger. So that's also, cause like I said, there's a future they're gonna have to change here, because there's clearly some stuff going on. But Wonder Woman makes Sovereign torture him, like carve a message into his own chest with that dagger. And I posted the message board for some people who've discussed this issue. We're like, why is Wonder Woman having this guy like do a torture thing? What is going on here? What is this? So it's just, it's unclear as to but so Sovereign has to carve something true into his own chest. He carves liar. So he brands himself. But I was like, after 19 issues, it's still not entirely clear, because he's like, oh well, I've been humiliated and he's in prison. He's talking this whole story, this whole thing about him narrating these like 19 issues has been him narrating to Trinity, which I think we get it. We got a little bit of a spoiler a few issues ago. So he's been narrating to Trinity, and she's like, I want to hear the whole story about what happened to my mom, and so he's telling the story, right? And she comments that she knows when he's telling the truth and when he's lying or something. So again, it's still kind of mercurial as to exactly where the truth and lies are on all this. But the whole, to answer your question, the idea of him, which is what I was looking forward to, the idea that him being the sovereign was itself a lie, because there's no way you can have the story be that he actually was the secret king behind every president in history. That's such a huge retcon of American history.
Yeah.
And that was not definitively disproven as of issue 19. I don't know if it's still coming. It didn't look like it, but I don't know.
Can I say
Well,
one thing?
that's really irritating.
That was so like I was very deflated by the humiliation ritual, which I felt was very self-indulgent, unnecessary, and quite creepy. Because again, when you read the fact that
Exceedingly creepy.
Sovereign is very clearly a stand-in for what Tom King is counter-signaling politically. It was like, I've never thought about my political enemies as someone who I want to have in front of me, bare-chested and branding them with a blade. That's a very dark kind of power fantasy.
Well, and that's
Well, it's what happens when you convince
he was a
yourself.
CIA spook. So I mean, what do you expect?
Right. So I but then, like I said, I was like what Hutch said. I wanted a more definitive answer on, I've been lying about, or even just a clue that he's been lying about what the sovereign is as an institution, because that implies some very dark things about America, right? Like you really undermined the idea of the country if that's in fact the case.
Well,
and that's an
really
important thing to,
Well, and that's a really interesting point too, because I think Isaac brings up here, doesn't that go against everything America stands for? And yes, unless you're a Democrat, in which case that's exactly what America stands for: internment camps, slavery, COVID-19. Just in case you're curious, but I mean, just like lighting Tesla dealerships on fire for not funding U.S. aid,
right?
And I mean that whole thing. And that goes back to rest in peace, Honest Abe. Abigail said earlier, and I just like to say that, like, every time a Republican wins an election, I always say that the Democrats are last time I saw them this mad is when we took their slaves away. So, at the risk of seeming really petty, that's the nature of the game that's in there. Is all this self-congratulatory. Humiliation ritual. It's all the same kind of ballywick as that. It's all the Stalinist what's the term they had?
But like, how can there be a secret king? It's like, and yet there's Republicans and there's Democrats, and they completely change the direction of the country. But if there's really a secret king who just runs the whole thing, I'm sure some people, and not Tom King, would be saying this is why there's always a uniparty, that no matter who you put in charge, government always grows, and we never actually.
In reality, that's pretty much what it has.
That's a trend. That's a trend in superhero comics as a whole. I could go for another hour about that. I'm actually writing about it in my conclusion to my project. That the optimism of the superhero is now having to face, both left and right, by the way, have this view about the uniparty and the immovability, immutability, and cynicism towards their large institutions. And when that hits the superhero comics, it has some very interesting ramifications. I think the Sovereign is one of them. But is it a ramification to completely retcon America in that.
The other thing superhero comics love to do is that kind of retcon where we go all the way back to ancient Egypt, and it's like, turns out this mutant created half the world or something, right? It's like,
this is different. This is different.
And this is different too because we're dealing. I mean, you look at all the apocalypse stuff, and like, oh, the golden age of Egypt was because of apocalypse,
Right.
and everything, la 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 la, and that's fanciful. That's so fanciful, it's nonsense, right? And so you can take it and shut your brain off, and you can see the pharaoh, the mummy themed mutants.
There's no political. There's much less of a political angle.
No,
to
no.
it.
But
There's
still doing
politics
all
play
that
a factor in that story,
you're
but not
reinventing
in
the
a
world.
tangible, real world way.
I have a hard time differentiating whether or not superhero universes count as what we like to call as the real world, or if they should really be considered an elseworld. Because by the time we get done making all the changes we do, and literally sometimes that means going back in time and retconning things, it's like, this is not the world we live in. Right?
True.
I mean, and obviously there's some of that. And like, that's one of the things that, trying to move toward wrapping up. Because you've been here an hour and a half.
I do need to ask one question before we wrap it up, but go ahead.
Okay. Is that like one of the things that I really appreciated that DC did, especially in the post-crisis, was trying to separate the rules of the DC universe from the rules of the real world, where by and large, whatever president we had wasn't the president of America in the comics. You had specific agencies and governmental bodies that are directed toward their fictional world and the paranormal things that would go on in them. And so you wouldn't have to you could have no connection. You could have general concepts and histories, but no connection to the regular history and or the current events as they were in this moment. And that especially I think made sense because if you're talking about a 6-issue story arc, that takes 6 months to tell. It takes a year to put together, a year and a half or so to put together, and everything's changed in the government since then.
Right.
So
the thing is, fiction tends to work like that anyway. I mean, like, technically, no matter how real world it is, all fictional stories are technically alternate universes because these characters you're following don't exist, right? The restaurant the person owns does not exist. You've literally taken a part of New York and changed the facade of this building in order to make it somebody else's house, whatever, right? And so, yeah, you're often going to see them do things like change out, the president for just some actor who plays a fictional character. But there's this, certain amount where we still say that's basically the real world, right? But when the MCU comes along and does the snap and then tells us that 5 years have gone by since the world vanished, and then they all come back in again, and now we're all dealing with the ramifications of this, and clearly, we look around, clearly none of that has happened, right? You're creating entire other timelines worth of stuff with the kind of changes you're making.
That's kind of comes with the territory, though.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not.
Yeah, the 5 years that they're gone and all the lives that were ruined from how many people killed themselves because their spouses were gone or their children vanished in front of them, and then they return, but oh yeah, your mom killed herself when you disappeared. I always thought it would have been, by the way, just complete tangent. I always thought it would be cool if Aunt May had not disappeared, but had stayed there for 5 years. And when Pete comes back, she's gone gray with worry. Yeah. It would just be, anyway, it was a perfect excuse to do that, but they skipped.
I don't want to talk about the snap because it makes me angry.
But yeah, it's the kind of thing that that everybody should be. It's a major world event, and Marvel's like, oh, that's over, it's past.
But the thing is, in the MCU, the snap is one thing. In classic superhero comics, this is happening every 6 months for the last 80 years.
That's superhero books. I'm not gonna like you're here for that. Like,
yeah.
Or you're not into like. What can I tell
I'm not saying whether I'm into it. I'm just pointing out, like, I don't know if I can consider this the real world. It seems much of it. Well, and that's what I'm saying. It's like it's right on the line. It's this weird thin line where it's like, is this Elseworld? I don't know.
It's kind of like how on Doctor Who, the doctor pointed out that it's weird how people don't remember. You don't remember dinosaurs going down the streets at one time? You don't remember the Loch Ness Monster was proven to be real and he was attacking the town? You don't remember any of this? You don't remember the Cybermen attacking? Like, oh, the aliens exist? He's like, what do you mean aliens exist? We've had like 20 invasions. And yeah, nobody remembers any of this stuff. So anyway, one of the big problems with this, with the way Tom King writes, with everything about this, is a basic plotting thing that bothers me, is that you should be able to take the character's plot and write it out. And if you've ever seen the the Lex Luthor's plot written out version of Batman versus Superman, here's what Lex Luthor's doing, and it's like it goes on forever. I forget who did that, whether it was the Real Trailers guy or whoever, but it was like you write out Lex's plot and it is really stupid and it doesn't make any sense at all. And it's kind of like when you're reading this, it's like, why is he killing Steve Trevor? What is he trying to do? He's killing the boyfriend of a woman who can run into his house at the speed of Hermes and pull out his brain faster than he could believe that she's there. If you got her really mad, and she's killed people before, by the way. And what is he trying to do? You see that he has like a whole bunch of armed guards outside his building. It's like they can do anything against her. What is his purpose in doing this if she was really mad? It's kind of like how that whole Batman v Superman thing. It's like Superman could eliminate Batman from orbit. He doesn't because he's nice. That's the only reason Superman would ever win or Batman would ever win is because Superman will pull his punches because he doesn't hate Batman.
I feel like
I disagree with that, but that's on the fact that Superman has a varying.
We do not have the time. We do not have the time. We do not have the time for that can of worms.
But this is the same thing as Wonder Woman could, if there wasn't goodness to her, Wonder Woman could kill him the moment that she finds out he did that to the man that she loves. What is he trying to do? His plot does not make any sense.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, that is all I'm saying about the Superman could eliminate you from orbit. You think you've got a fighting chance against him, So yeah, this plot doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Okay.
Yeah, that's all I wanted to say about it.
Yeah, no, you're I think that you are correct.
After
I was saying a lot here.
Right. Batman doesn't stand a chance if Superman wasn't a Christian.
What I'm going to say is that after 19 issues, for Sovereign's plot to be still this mercurial is also frustrating.
It'll make sense at 120.
Because all he said is he's clearly doesn't want to kill her because he had her in his power. He could have killed her. He wants to break her. And again, that plays with this whole I'm a petty man. I have to break the will of this strong woman. And it's like, and you're going to do that by tossing her on an island. The methods he has for trying to break her just seem to be very odd. Yeah. The killing Steve Treasure part makes a little more sense. I want to wound you. This is the thing, like your loved one. That tracks a little bit, but it's still.
Well, and I mean, okay. Last thing, we got to cut it off after this.
Yeah.
But compare the Sovereign's plan to Bane's plan in Nightfall.
Wear you down so that I can
wear you down slowly over time. Affect the things that you matter about, that you care about. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, it's none of that. None of that. It's just dumb. Okay, that's it. We got to go. We got to call it there, guys. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. I can't remember what we're doing next week. I had an idea and I was gonna run it past everybody, but I can't think of it. So we're gonna wrap it. We're gonna call it. We'll do comics and stuff next. I don't know. We gotta call it though.
I want to make sure everyone understands that I will not be back for another one of these.
Yeah, unless
and I don't know if any of us will.
Here's the Wonder Woman situation. If next week Twitless says, dude, I just read 20. You gotta read 20. I trust
don't give
you
him
enough.
Ideas.
Even though I don't agree with you about a lot of things, I trust you enough that if you say there's a comic I have to read, I will probably read that comic.
All right.
But I will not be seeking out any more Tom King Wonder Woman.
That's fair.
Well, except like I said, we could compare the Wonder Woman and Superman comics.
I think if we want to do more Wonder Woman, we should take a look at it's only 5 issues, right? And it's Absolute Wonder Woman, the start for that, and comparing how Kelly Thompson approaches the feminist character as opposed to Tom King is fascinating because you have 2 different approaches, and
I could do that.
And again, it's shorter. That opening arc is only 5 issues, and it's a pretty brisk read.
Okay.
So I think it'd be cool since it's fresh in our minds to compare and contrast them. To be honest, that would be kind of neat.
As long as I don't have to, I don't know what it is. So as long as I don't have to see Batman saying "bees, my gosh."
No. It's it's very no. You don't.
That's it. We're calling the show. Thank you guys for tuning in. See you. Hang around the social medias to find out what the next thing is going to be. We'll catch you all next time. Get out there and read better comics. Don't give Tom King your money. Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Night, night.